She laughed at the casket. Not a nervous sound, not grief misfiring. A clean, amused breath that slipped out of her like she just won something. Like, comment, and subscribe Huna Stories for more stories. The chapel smelled of lilies and old money, and she leaned toward me in her black silk dress and whispered, "Your loser dad left you nothing but a rusty lab." Then she had security escort us out of the mansion before the dirt even settled on his grave. That was the moment something in me went quiet. Not broken, focused. I remember the weight of my father's old notebook in my coat pocket as I stood on the gravel drive, rain darkening my shoes. She stood at the top of the steps, framed by glass and chandeliers, already dialing her lawyer. She didn't look back. She didn't need to. She thought she'd won. I didn't open the notebook until that night. When I first met her, she wore white and spoke softly, like she was afraid of breaking things. My dad smiled more around her. He'd been tired for years, hands always stained with grease from that failed lab she loved to mock. He told me she believed in him, that she saw potential. I wanted to believe it too. She learned quickly, learned how to pour his coffee just right, learned the names of his old colleagues, learned which questions to ask so he'd talk, and which ones to avoid so he wouldn't notice her listening. I mistook observation for care. That's on me. The shift was subtle. A missing file here, a suggestion there. She started calling his work a hobby, then a liability. His lab funding dried up. Investors pulled out, citing conflicts. Dad laughed it off, said he'd rebuild. He didn't see her phone light up at night. I did. I didn't confront her when I found the email thread. Forwarded proposals, proprietary data stamped with my father's name, but written in her voice. I didn't scream when I realized she'd been selling his research in pieces, slow enough to avoid alarms. I closed the laptop. I memorized dates. Grief makes people reckless. I refused that gift. After the funeral, we moved into a small apartment above a bakery. Flour dusted the windowsills every morning. I started working nights. During the day, I read. That notebook wasn't sentimental. It was precise. Schematics, timelines, a running commentary in my father's tight handwriting, noting discrepancies, partner behavior, doubts. The last pages were different, not fear, preparation. He'd suspected her. He'd hidden ownership of the core patents inside a shell company registered under the lab's original name, the rusty one she'd laughed about. The shell listed me as successor, quiet, legal, inarguable. My hands shook because I finally understood him. He hadn't failed, he'd been patient. So was I. I rebuilt the lab on paper before I ever touched a beaker. I contacted the same investors who'd fled him and asked them one question. Why did you leave? Their answers didn't match. Patterns never do when lies are involved. I hired a forensic accountant. I didn't tell him why. I let the numbers speak. They screamed. Every move I made was reversible, clean. I let her continue, let her expand, let her brag in the right rooms. I fed her just enough confidence to make her sloppy. Then I filed, not for money, for ownership. She called me when the injunction froze her assets. Her voice was sharp now, thin. This is a mistake. I said nothing. The board meeting was held in glass. Everyone could see everyone else. Transparency is terrifying when you've built your life on mirrors. I sat at the far end of the table, the notebook in front of me. I didn't open it. I didn't need to. Her lawyer spoke first, confident, incorrect. I waited until he finished. Then I slid the documents across the table. Patent transfers, email headers, timestamps. Her smile collapsed in increments. When she tried to interrupt, the chair shut her down. When she tried to stand, security moved. Not the kind she hired. She looked at me then, really looked, like she was seeing the outline of a trap she'd walked into months ago. Your father was nothing, she said softly. Desperate people shrink their cruelty. I leaned forward. He was careful. That was enough. She lost the company that day, not in court, in reputation. Investors don't forgive being played, especially not by someone who mocked the dead while stealing from the living. The mansion sold within a year. The lab reopened under its original name. Rusty, maybe still standing. I keep the notebook in my desk. I don't read it anymore. I don't need reminders. Revenge isn't loud when it's done right. It doesn't celebrate, it corrects. She laughed at a funeral because she thought endings were permanent. I learned from my father that they're just transitions if you're patient enough to plan what comes next. Thanks for listening. Like, comment, and subscribe Huna Stories for more stories.